How did our grain bin setup go from looking something like this to this in a matter of less than 2 weeks?
Welcome back to HiTech Farmer. Today I want to show you guys some of the changes that we have been making to our bin site this summer. But first, I need to explain to you the problems we had last fall that led to these changes. The way our current grain setup works is a semi will come over our 2 grain pits, open both traps, and unload the semi in less than 5 minutes, and the corn will then get augered over to the grain leg. From there, the corn comes down this pipe here all the way down into our dryer, where it is then dried to our desired moisture level. The amount of time the corn spends in the dryer depends on the moisture content of the corn that comes in from the field and the desired threshold of what we want the corn to exit the dryer at. The corn leaves the dryer and is augered into what we call our surge or dry bin, which is connected to our grain blower, which takes the dry corn and blows it to the rest of the bins to be filled. Last fall, our corn was coming out of the field and into the dryer at 18 to 19% and quickly running through to dry it down to 16%, which means our dryer had an output capacity of roughly 1,500 bushels per hour. And our blower here, which is a 5-inch blower, is rated to do roughly 1,000 bushels per hour. And herein lies our problem. We knew the corn dryer would catch the dry bin, but we didn't expect it to happen in the short amount of time it did while we were away from the yard. When we did make it back, we were greeted with the bin overfilling and corn piles on the ground, which resulted in damaging the structural integrity of the bin roof. This left us with 2 options of what to do moving forward. Option number 1, which was to take off the damaged pieces of the grain roof from the grain overfilling and damaging those sheets on an over 40-year-old bin. And option number 2, which was transferring what was our old wet bin to the location of our new dry bin and deconstructing the dry bin and constructing a new wet bin. If you've seen my previous video about the major improvements to the grain site, you know that we chose option number 2 and took a crane and lifted the old wet bin to the location for a new dry bin and have begun constructing a new wet bin. If you've never seen a grain bin constructed before, it's impressive to see how they start with the roof and then use hydraulic jacks to work every sheet up all the way down to the floor. The new wet bin is a 27-foot diameter Brock, narrow corrugated, 27,000 bushel capacity bin. One thing unique about this bin compared to the rest of the bins that we have, as you might be able to notice, is this bin has stiffeners. So that's these little corrugated steel sheets right here that go up all the way to the top of the bin to where the roof meets. Reason being is this bin is 66 feet to the very, very, very top. That's the tallest bin we have. So that is why it has stiffeners to help when we get those large wind events. I know the contractor says it's supposed to hold up to winds of 105 miles per hour, so we'll see about that. Another thing I like about this bin is it has what they call a spiral stepway, so it's got steps all the way up to the top. That way, rather than having to crawl up a ladder like there, or even like we have on the leg, you can just go up like you're going up the steps in your basement. Here's the view from the top of the bin. There it's connected to the leg. There's that platform and the spiral staircase. One other thing we did different here is we directly spouted these into the bin, so it goes right into the bin lid. That's different compared to our other ones where we have to carry a spout up there. So hope that's nice. Hope no moisture gets inside there and starts to rot grain, but it'll be nice not having to tow it up a spout and bolt that on every fall and every spring when we're unloading. Here's our new dry bin with it spouted in, and then we have our 8-inch grain pump coming from the dryer that's bringing the dry grain back into this bin, which, as I described earlier, is then blown to the rest of the bins. That's it for everything we changed here on the ground with the 2 bins themselves. Since we had all the spouts down because we had to change things around for the bin, we figured it was a good time to upgrade distributors. We'd been having some issues with it leaking and spilling over into the other hole, so we had grain coming down into other bins when we hadn't set it that way. So we also changed the distributor. So I'm going to climb up to the top of the leg and show you guys the new distributor that we got going. As you just saw, I obviously had to take the ladder to get up to the top of the leg, but it took a large crane and hydraulic lift to put the distributor up on the leg and into its new position. Here it is, the new distributor. A Schlegel 8-hole, 10-inch diameter distributor. What this does is inside it determines which pipe you're going to send the corn down. I can get it open, and that determines which bin you're going to fill. One thing I really like about this one, which hopefully solves some of our problems, is this pipe actually slides down into the hole that you have desired, and hopefully that's going to work good for us. Since the new distributor sits up 5 feet higher than the old one, every pipe and elbow connection off the distributor had to be reworked and welded to fit the new configuration of the distributor. If you're not a big fan of heights like me, this job is definitely meant to be left to the professionals. Once the bin crew got the distributor installed, they then created new spouts to go from the distributor to the lid of the wet bin and dry bin. Reason being, those were the 2 that changed the most in terms of height. It was cool to see how they measured the length needed from the distributor to the bin lid by hanging a tape measure between the 2. They needed to weld on an additional piece of the spout we already had to make the length a touch longer to reach the bin. After we got the grain pipes up to the distributor down to the bin lids, that portion of our project was complete. One thing we're going to try different with this new distributor is we have a fan on here. We had a fan on the old one, but this fan is actually going to be sucking air in and down the pipes where our old one blew out. So hopefully that way we can keep the fines down in the bin and not end up with plugged pipes coming off the leg like we had previously. For those of you that have never been on top of a grain leg, here I'll give you a quick 10-second clip of what it looks like to be on top of a grain leg that's 110 feet up in the air. You can see some of our corn starting to die. Haven't got a rain in 3 weeks, but 120 feet up in the air, working in the grain leg, kind of a cool feeling, cool sight you don't get to see every day. But now I'm going to head back down the grain leg so I can tell you guys some of the advantages that we're going to see this fall with some of the improvements that we made here this summer. Made it down from the grain leg, now standing in the doorway of our new wet bin to tell you about some of the improvements of efficiency that this summer project is going to do for us come harvest. The first reason and the main reason we went ahead on this project was what you're seeing right now, which is our new 27,000 bushel wet bin, which is an increase of over 12,000 bushels from our old wet bin that stood on this very same floor and concrete. Benefit number 2 is right here, our dry bin, which used to be our wet bin, and as you saw, got lifted over with a crane onto this concrete, which is an increase of over 8,000 bushels compared to our old dry bin that was here in this position. Both of which played into the hand of a greater efficiency for our grain dryer, as we now have this larger wet bin ahead of the dryer and a larger dry bin behind the dryer, which means more time for us to dry corn and keep ahead of the combine. So there you have it. The main reasons why we chose option number 2, to increase the size of our wet bin, increase our size of our dry bin, and to keep ahead of our dryer and ultimately that combine. Admittedly, I'm excited to see how this new wet bin, dry bin, distributor, everything works together to help us with our workflow this fall. On that same token, I'm also nervous for that first day of fall because we made a lot of changes here on the bench site, and it's always nerve-wracking that first day of fall to make sure everything's gonna work according to plan. That's about a wrap on things that we did here at the bench site this summer. If you guys were watching this video and thought of anything along the way that you would have done differently or saw things that you were intrigued by, let me know down below in the comments. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. But that's gonna be it for today's video of HiTech Farmer. Thanks so much everyone for watching, and we'll see ya in the next one.